to go over a concept called conditional statements. And this concept is going to be extremely important for you AP Computer Science A students because conditional statements are one of the sort of building blocks of the course. If you can't understand them in the beginning, the later concepts are going to become extremely challenging. So it's good to have a good sort of base for a concept like conditional statements. So imagine a scenario like this. Let's say I'm making some sort of weather chat bot or a system. So I want to tell the user what to wear based on what the weather is. So let's say I'll make a variable and I'm gonna just write pseudocode for now. I'm not gonna write actual code so that we can understand these concepts. Let's say I say weather equals, let's say I want to say weather equals sunny. So the weather is sunny right now. Draw a little sun there. Okay, so the weather is sunny. Now, because the weather is sunny, I want to tell the user, okay, you should wear shorts and a t-shirt. So we need to first check if the weather is sunny, because if the weather is cold, or let's say it's raining, we don't want to recommend or print to the user that we want them to wear a t-shirt and shorts. So I can do something like, if the weather is sunny, then I want to print t-shirt plus shorts. Now, none of this is actual Java code. This is pseudo code, so that we can sort of conceptualize what conditional statements are before we actually start writing code. So here we have the so this right here can be considered an if condition. And what an if condition does is that you start with the word if, and then you check. This is what's known as your condition right here. So our condition is weather being sunny. So if the weather is sunny, then we want to do something. Then we want to print, or we want to execute this line of code. Now, what if the weather isn't sunny? What if the weather instead, let's say the weather is cold? Well, when we run this program as it is right now, the computer, when it goes through when it goes through our code, it's going to see that weather isn't sunny. So it's not going to execute this line of code over here because our weather is cold. So this is where something called an else if condition comes into use. So we can say something like else if and then weather cold, then we might want to print let's say we want to print boots plus jacket. Now essentially what we've done here is we've told the computer, okay, first I want you to check if the weather is sunny. If the weather isn't sunny, then use this else if condition. So this else if condition, basically what will happen is the computer will look at this right here first, this condition first, and it'll see, okay, well, this isn't true. So then it's going to go down here and it's going to check the else if condition. And it sees, okay, well, the weather is cold. So the weather is cold. And this right here, this condition is satisfied. So then it's going to execute the line that's within this else if condition instead of this if condition. So if we were to actually code this program, print boots plus jacket, or print like some sort of statement where it says you should wear boots and a jacket would be printed. Now let's say instead of that we say, okay, our weather isn't actually cold anymore. Let's say, let me think. Well, there's only really two types of weather. Let's say it's snowing. Okay, it's snowing. Oops. Sort of the same thing as it being cold. Let's say it's snowing. Okay. We want another condition to check if it's snowing. So we can use a third type. There's a third type of conditional statement called an else. So else, basically, when you use an else condition, it's not like this if and else if condition because it doesn't have this if over here. Meaning that when you write an else condition, you're not going to have these parentheses or any condition inside of here. You're not going to have that at all. What you're doing when you write an else condition is basically saying, okay, you're basically telling the computer, well, if this if condition over here and this else if condition over here don't work, then you do this. This is what you're going to do. So we can write our code over here, which will basically say, okay, if it's snowing, then wear some pants or something like that. Doesn't really matter. But what you need to understand is that this sort of sequence of us going from if, else, is important because the computer is going to check, let's say this line of code here is number 1, and this line of code here is number 2, and this line of code here is number 3. Well, it's going to check the first line of code, then the second, then the third. But it's not going to check the second or the third if the first line of code is met, the condition is satisfied. If, let's say this condition isn't satisfied, well then it's going to go to line 2. Else if weather is cold, okay, let's say that condition is satisfied. Okay, we're good, this condition is satisfied. So it's going to run this code that's over here, but it isn't going to check the third else condition because it's just going to print this boots plus jacket. Now, conditional statements can be a little tricky at first, but once I start writing out the actual code, it should make a lot more sense. Now I'm in Replit and I can sort of show you now how conditional statements can be really useful. So I'm going to create a small program here that's going to tell me my grade based on the percentage that I have. So I'm going to initialize a new variable. I'm going to call it my grade, and I'm going to set it to, let's say my grade is an 89. Okay. So we're going to use conditional statements to essentially make a program that will print to the console over here what my grade is. So we need to use if conditions to check if my grade is within a certain range, and based on that we can print what my letter grade is. For example, a 78 would be considered a C. So first I'm going to start with an if condition, so I can go if and then my parentheses, then I can do my grade. So if my grade is less than a 60%, then that should be an F. So if my grade is less than a 60%, then I do my brackets. Then inside of here, I will do print, and then that will be an F. So let's say I run this program, and sorry, this should be less than 60. Let's say I run this program. Nothing will happen because 89 is not less than 60, and there's no other alternative unless there's no alternative to this condition right here. So if I run this right now, nothing's going to happen because this condition isn't met, so it won't print anything out. Remember, for this if condition to run, this inside of these parentheses, this has to be true. So now I'm going to write an else if condition. So else if my grade, now let's say we have a D. So a D would be greater than or equal to 60%, and the grade would also have to be less than 70. So now what I've done basically here is I have my if condition. Now I'm saying to the computer, well, if this if condition doesn't work, then this is the next thing you're going to check. That's what this else is doing. So now I'm going to print, this will be a D right here. So this grade will be a D. Now, what if my condition fits neither of these? Well, then I have to write another conditional statement. So I'll go again, else if my grade, let's say if the grade is greater than or equal to 70 and the grade is less than 80. Well, this will be a C, so I can do system.out.println C, then remember my semicolon there. So now the computer is going to be like, okay, does this condition work? No, it doesn't. Does this condition work? No, it doesn't. Does this condition work? No, it doesn't. So I'm going to give the computer another else if condition, else if my grade, let's do, is greater than or equal to 80, and my grade is less than 90. So this will be a letter grade of a B. So now I have an if and all these else if conditions, but now I know that if my grade isn't less than 60, it's not going to be an F, and my grade isn't less than 70, isn't between 60 and 70, so it's not going to be D. So, and it keeps going. So my grade's not between 70 and 80, and my grade's not in between 80 and 90. So if my grade is none of those, then I can print my grade's an A. Now, of course, this program isn't accounting for if the user does not type in a number, but the user isn't typing anything in, so we're fine. We're just depending on this variable right here. So before I press run here, let's think about what's going to happen here. Okay, the computer sees that my grade is 89. Is my grade less than 60? No, it's not. So not satisfied. This if condition is not going to be satisfied. Okay, is my grade, the variable my grade, is it greater than or equal to 60? It is. But remember, when we have this and here, the computer is going to check the second part of this condition as well. So is my grade less than 70? No, it's not. So that means that this code in here is not going to be printed either. Then the computer goes to the next else if. My grade is greater than or equal to 70. It is. Then it goes to the second part. Is it less than 80? No, it's not. Okay, this isn't satisfied either. Now I go to the next condition. It is greater than 80, and it is also less than 90. So that means B should be printed out. So this right here should be satisfied. And also I want to make a note here is that when you have an else here, you can't do something like my grade is, this isn't allowed here because you don't have an if here. You don't have an if. So that's not going to work. So you can't have any sort of condition when you're just doing an else statement. So now I'm going to run this. It should print out B like we predicted. And it does. So now let me change this variable up a little bit. Let me do, let's say I have a 99. Okay, it prints A. So essentially what happened is the computer went through all of these if conditions and then it printed A because none of these conditions over here were satisfied. Now, you might be wondering, well, what if I just delete this if here? Well, the problem is that you cannot use an else if condition unless you have an if condition before it. Because what else if is basically saying is, if this if condition does not work, this is the next condition we're checking. So hopefully that was a good introduction to conditional statements in Java for AP Computer Science A. Please consider subscribing as it helps us create more videos like this. Thank you.